Welcome to Tell the Damn Story, the show that explores the many ways to navigate the successes and failures that aspiring and struggling writers face to make your journey that much easier.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a little off topic. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Chris Ryan, and this is Tell the Damn Story. And that guy over there is Alex Simmons. And that guy over there is our guest. We're glad to have him back so soon. The one, the only, the king of the Midwest, Jim Beard, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, I didn't know he was all that.
Technically, it's the Great Lakes, but I'll accept the Midwest.
He is the Great Lakes Avenger, ladies and gentlemen.
The Great Lakes Avenger.
Yeah, I'm flat man.
How you
Ladies
doing,
and gentlemen,
Jim?
I am doing just fine, but you know what? I do have to admit, I thought I wanted to do this tonight, but now I'm not so sure. So I'm wondering if we can maybe like reschedule it, put it off to another time.
Now, Jim.
Nice segue
That
into
sounds a
the
little
title
on,
of this
a little
episode.
on the nose there, Jim. Oh no!
What's this
what Jim's
episode,
talking
Chris?
about?
Yes.
What I was goofing around about. What Alex? Oh well, he of course never does it because he's Alex effing Simmons. What we're talking about is the idea of procrastination.
Procrastination.
Does it exist? What is it? How does it come about? How do you deal with it? Is there a cure? All of that, ladies and gentlemen. And this nonsense that we've been talking about right here, we're procrastinating from getting into the subject. So let's talk a little bit about who Jim is, in case you don't remember from all that so long ago when he was last on. Jim Beard Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a writer, editor, and small press publisher. I have two publishing houses, Flinch Books, with my publishing partner, John Bruning. We're celebrating 10 years.
10 years is a good
I also
run, man.
have Becky Books, which I use to do more fiction, but also a lot of nonfiction, pop culture nonfiction.
Yep.
Books on comic books, but books on stuff that we grew up with as kids and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
It's really good stuff. Yeah, a lot of fun. And I'm honored to have been part of some of that stuff too, Jim.
Some of that
thank
stuff,
you very
Yeah,
much.
like a lot of it.
A couple of things. Yeah, well, maybe three soon.
If you got got in a snit and pulled all your work from my books, they would all fall apart.
I would never do that.
Okay, good.
Because I'm thrilled with where they are.
All right, good. I wouldn't allow you to do it.
There you go. When we contacted Jim Jim contacted us and what's going on, and we were talking about topics. Jim, you came up with it though. It was like a one-word pitch, procrastination.
And
So
I joked about it, but it's a demon that I think a lot of writers, a lot of people in our community suffer under. And I think the more we all thought about it, it might be a good one to get out in the open and
oh yeah,
talk about. I suffered from it all my life for many different reasons, and many different things can spur it on too. And I'm thinking again that I think there's a lot of people around us that do that to varying degrees, of course.
Yeah. And some of it, let's define. Maybe Alex can or Jim can. How would you define procrastination?
Do I have to do it right now?
That's procrastination right there.
It's not doing what you should be doing. How's that? There's a lot of those memes like you should be writing and things like that. One of the things that I think about a lot, and I really want to call this out at the beginning, is that there's writing for somebody else.
Right.
You've been hired, hopefully you're being paid, and you're working with a deadline set up by somebody else. There's that, and you could procrastinate, but there's also the stuff that maybe you're doing for yourself. And yes, I admit it, those deadlines are usually arbitrary.
Right.
And maybe you feel a little less bad when you're blowing your own personal deadlines for your own personal stuff that you might be publishing or whatever like that. But it gets really dicey when you start doing it and you're working for somebody else. And your reputation, if you have one, is on the line for it. But it's again, it's not writing regularly, or it could be defined as that. It's doing everything else in the world, but it's working on outlines and cover designs and writing your author bio or worrying about your author photo instead of actually writing.
Right.
It's trying to fill in that same time that you're normally going to be writing with things that do not advance the writing.
Yeah, sometimes we feel like we're really busy and we accomplished a bunch of things, but it's not what we had scheduled to, or the biggest deadline. So that's a pretty good working definition. Let's see what Alex has to say.
I would say it's embracing the distraction that's keeping you from doing the thing that you know you should be doing it when it needs to be done. And in particular, it's avoiding asking the question of why am I doing that?
Okay.
Because that's one of the things that you can procrastinate, and we can very comfortably validate. I'm doing stuff. I'm busy. I'm working on this because we can give ourselves all sorts of excuses about why we need to be doing the thing we're doing when we're not doing the thing we really should be doing.
Right.
But then when we say, okay, I'm not doing that thing, damn it, then we'll beat ourselves for not doing the thing, which will kill even more time.
It's second level procrastination.
Pile in front of the thing that you should be doing.
Yeah.
So it's a mental game. It's a mental game that we put ourselves through, and we really need to be asking why. Why am I doing this? What's holding me back?
So far, we've talked about busy work procrastination, guilt procrastination. Is there any other kinds of procrastination?
Fear.
We're not getting to the reasons why. We're to the actions that sometimes it's, I can't right now. The baby's sick, or I can't right now. I gotta fold that laundry.
There's never enough time. That's a great one.
Yeah, it can be as simple as why write today what you can write tomorrow. I do that to myself all the time. I'll say, man, I really should be writing, but you know what? I could just do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and goes, and you can
say that every day for a year
over again. A lot of what I do is justifying things with myself and negotiating with. And I just recently on my Facebook page asked everybody, do you negotiate with yourself? And there was some interesting answers to that, but I'll do that. Okay, if as long as you write tomorrow, you can screw around today, and that's just a slippery slope.
Oh yeah,
that's procrastinate. You're falling down procrastination mountain.
Oh yeah.
Shorts.
Let me ask, before we get to the whys and wherefores, I want to talk about some contributing factors. There's two that I'd like to discuss. One, we hear our favorite authors and what their writing pattern is. I recently saw George R. Martin interviewing Stephen King. It's from years ago, right? But there was this little clip where Martin wants to know how King does it. And it's a really interesting thing. He says, I write every day. About 4 hours a day. I try to get 6 pages. But that's what you hear. But if you listen to it a second time, he goes, I write every day when I'm writing. And then he says the rest of it, right? So if people just think a writer writes 6 pages every day, you're putting this pressure on yourself that if I don't write 6 pages, I'm not which is just a lie. Yeah. And if you listen closely to King, when I write, so when he's in project, he might get rolling, and God bless him, that's him. And George R. Martin says it takes him a lot longer. And there's the old James Joyce story. His friend comes in, how'd you write today, James? He says, 7 words. And it's, that's good for you, James. He says, I don't know what order they come in. And
George R. Martin has no business talking about. I'm not
until you finish the project you got us all linked on.
Of a guy that literally has stretched out one damn book over, what is it, 12, 15 years now? I'm exaggerating a little bit, 10 years maybe, and keeps stringing his fans along.
That may come down as epic procrastination.
Well, I was going to say he's the procrastination poster boy, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he needs to literally just go out in public and admit that book is never going to happen and just stop saying it's going to happen.
He owes us two. And privately, I think maybe because he's afraid he's not going to do as well as the show, but everyone hated the last season. He can easily overcome that.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Now, so that's one thing. What do you think about people who try to hold themselves to the level of some legendary writer and therefore get procrastination because they're overpressuring themselves? Do you see that? Do you buy it? Do you not buy it? What do you guys think?
Oh, no.
I would say that whether or not I buy it or not is irrelevant. It's really what's going on in their heads.
Nicely
I think
said.
I think some people absolutely it's imposter syndrome or something else and it goes back to that word I said, fear. Something about it scares them.
Yeah.
They're not enough. It's not going to be good enough. There's no one going to read it. Whatever it is, they're telling themselves. And so they're going to justify beginning to commence to start to eventually getting around to maybe starting. But ultimately, for me, my procrastination menu encompasses some of the things that you said, but there's also it's an early one. It's one that I got stuck on years ago. I don't get stuck on it anymore. Thank you. Please, knock on wood. Gotta find just the right words. I gotta get that. No, that's not it yet. Yeah. And so you're in this loop of before you commit the pen to the paper or the fingers to the keyboard, you got to make sure the words that you're going to put down are perfect.
Yeah. I know a buddy of mine wrote a great story, maybe a perfect story. It might be the only thing he ever wrote because of that. He just sweated every line, every phrase, every comma. God bless him. So do you two agree? And then Jim, I want to go to you, had a point. Do you agree that done is better than perfect?
Oh, God, yes.
Yes. So that's one thing everybody has to just embrace.
There's two things that when people say, do you have any advice for writers? And number one, I always just
run away.
Alex, you said it, imposter syndrome. Like, why are you asking me? I always preface it by saying, remember, what works for me won't necessarily work for everybody else. This is just stuff that works for me. But yeah, one of them of my pieces of advice is finish something.
Yeah.
It does not have to be pretty when you type the N. You go back and make it pretty. Just freaking finish something.
The experience of
your
finishing.
Little orphans all over the place and then saying, yeah, I've got 3 or 4 novels started and maybe about half a dozen short stories, and I should finish one of them one of these days. Yeah, you should.
Yeah,
you should finish all of them.
And finish it. And
throw a dart.
The impetus to get you to finish more things.
I'd like to answer that question by quoting one of the great literary minds of our time who said,
"Thank you.
Let it suck.
Let it suck." That's right. I was kidding. Oh my God. There you go. Yep. I believe that completely. Let the first draft, let it suck.
Yeah.
Get it done, and then just go back and make it suck less. It's a lot less pressure.
And speaking of drafts, I know people who write 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 word outlines.
That is your draft. What are you doing?
Just write the story. That's not one of the largest signs of procrastination that I've ever heard of. If you are going to write that much for a freaking outline, just write the novel. I mean, my outlines are literally 1 page in a notebook, and they're basically just a couple scribbled
12
lines.
points.
I have to have a roadmap. There's that whole pantser versus plotter thing, and I always call myself a plantser.
Yeah,
because I do a mixture of both. But imposter syndrome is really a big part of it, and it's fear many times. With me, it might even be like loathing or hatred. I've learned to dislike the actual writing part. I like the end result, or I love
having written.
There's that saying that they don't seem to know who exactly said it, but which is, I hate writing but love having written.
Right.
That's me up one side and down the other.
Yeah, yeah.
I have found that, but once I get started and it's
Yeah.
flowing, then maybe things are okay. But literally, oh my God, I have to sit down and actually put words one after the other.
Right.
And all of that. I know people who actually love it. They love the craft. But
Yeah.
Right.
the thing that gets me to stop procrastinating is imagining what the end result is going to be. Jim, you are going to have another new book that you're going to take out of a box and hold and kiss
There it
and
is.
hug and embrace
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh,
take to
yeah.
bed with you and whatever else.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes that's what drives me on.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Nobody's reading the damn books.
That's for another episode. How to get people to read the damn books. Is the sequel to tell the damn story.
That's imposter syndrome, like that.
Read the big
Imposter
book, yeah.
syndrome is a killer, and it is so connected with procrastination. It's one of those big excuses, which is I'm not really a writer. I'm not really all those other people. I'm not like my friends. I'm not like my
Right.
colleagues. Why am I doing this?
Here was one of my great procrastinating exercises years ago. I'm an actor, but I'm writing this play.
Mhm.
And I'm writing this play so that I can be in it. I'm an actor. I'm going to write the play, but it'll be better when I'm actually doing the play because that's what I'm an actor. And whenever I had problems writing the play, I would tell myself, just because you're an actor, you're not really a writer. Of course, you're going to have problems here, but just knock this out here. And then once you get it up on its feet, and I went through the play that I was working on. I don't know. I really went at it, but I went through probably about a year of working on that play. And the funniest thing was I finally got it written and I had a reading of it. And again, I'm an actor. I wrote the play and I wrote a part in the play for me. I'm just going to have a reading, start to get some sense of who I'm going to cast in it. And we're going to do this play. And I'm at the reading and I'm hearing the play and I'm going, oh no, oh geez. And by the time it was over, yeah, there was a great reaction to the play, to the fact that it was written, to the characters, all this kind of stuff. But I'm sitting there going,
Rewrite.
yeah, but I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to myself, and it's like a conversation between two people in my head. This play, this is a good story. This is something you really want to see done right. You can't be an actor who's knocking this out so that you can get up on stage with it.
Right.
You got to take responsibility for those words and getting them right.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment, for that reason, I suddenly went, I have to be the playwright. That's what I have to be. I have to take responsibility for writing this play. And it went on for another year. But that's what I did. I was now the writer trying to turn this into the best version of it that I could. And we had several more readings and I would take notes and all that and go back at it. And again, Procrastination. It's a period piece. It's a Sherlock Holmes play. You know that thing, Chris.
Oh, yeah, that
Holmes
thing.
play, right? So it's British accents. I'm not British, and at this time in my life, I'd never been to England. It's the 1800s. I'm old, but I'm not that old. So I had to do some research on that. Then it's two other representatives from two other countries are in. There's a Frenchman and there's a Dutchman. Okay, so I got to get the accents right. And then the British accents, wait a minute, I got Cockney in it, so I got to get that right. And then all of that. And what started to happen was I was starting to have fun in this world because I was now living with these people. And then I got nervous again. You're not really a writer. Come on, you're fooling yourself. And the thing that kept me going was these people were talking to me now. And it was like, okay, I'm going to go hang out with Lestrade.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll talk with him. Oh, actually, he could say that. And so that got me through this, but it was a lonely experience. And this is another thing I'll say about writing and procrastination. It was a lonely experience. So you're alone. And if you like being around people or you want to spend time with family and everything, I want to spend time with my kids, or I want to spend time. Yeah, I'll get to that. I'll get to the writing later. I'll get to the writing the next day or whatever. There's a part of you that's saying, yeah, I want to spend time with loved ones and friends and things like that, which you can still do. after you finish writing. But no, this is a good excuse not to write, especially when you have a problem with your story and you don't know how to fix it.
Right.
So then, oh, I need family time. I need friends time. I need this. So I'll get to that. And it was a great lesson. And I will stop in a moment. It was a great lesson working on that play in its various stages and accepting my role as the writer. And to this day, which is many years later, I've never been in the play. You know, I wrote the role for myself. I never performed in that play.
You wrote yourself right out of it.
I think it's Mickey Spillane who said writing is a lonely business. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I was lucky enough to
Sounds
speak
right.
to Richard Price one time, sitting next to him, and I was asking him about it. He says, "Look, the thing you have to make peace with, and that's a really important thing. Is the thing you have to make peace for. It is this job is mostly ass in seat.
Yep.
You got to sit or now we can stand and do all that stuff, but it's about committing the time.
Yeah.
And you got to be
about
realistic
writing
with
is
yourself.
not writing.
Huh?
Thinking about writing is not.
Well, I want to talk about that 2 questions from now. But you talked about I want to be with my family and that kind of stuff. All of that stuff is procrastination until you deal. You've mentioned in like 300 of the 350th episodes that I used to get up at 3 or 4 in the morning to write when my twins were small, because once they showed up, that was over. That was the solution. You can do all those things. I want to talk about thinking is not writing in a minute, but first I'd like to ask, there's another theory that when you're procrastinating, it's a signal that you're not ready to write your story. Let's either embrace that or blow that out of the water. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just another excuse.
But it's something that people should face, because a lot of them say, I'm working on it, I'm not ready. And that brings us to the thinking part.
Actually, before you go there, again, just a response to that line may give you some sense of peace if you're talking about working on something of your own. But if you've been hired or you're in a position where you're supposed to be working on a project for somebody else, that boat don't float.
Right.
At all. You better get damn ready. You better be producing in some sort of regular basis or you're out the door.
Yep. I know somebody who lost quite a prominent gig with a prominent company, a regular gig, because of their procrastination. And they were doing everything else other than the work that they were contracted, and they could not get their butt in the seat.
Yeah.
And they paid the ultimate price for it, which is they lost one hell of a gig. Because if that's not a cure for procrastination,
Yeah, well,
I don't know what.
It might be a cure that's too late, and that might be tied into, but we all fear failure. You can't fail until you try. And if you procrastinate yourself out of that, you escape having to fail as a writer, but you've failed as an employee, and neither of those things work for your ultimate goal, right? I'd rather go down swinging, for the fences. This is the very best. This is everything I wanted to say about this topic. And if the editor wants changes, great. If the editor says, get the hell out of my office, but at least you did it.
But that's the job, right?
Yeah,
that's the job of the writer for hire.
But I would say this.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would say as an independent. All right, sorry, Jim, go ahead. You're our guest.
I wanted to just say one more thing about your question. Which is, I don't buy the whole thing about I'm not ready to write. Because if you know how to place one word after the other, and you know how to form a sentence, and you know how to form a paragraph, and you know how to use quotation marks, right?
Right.
You're ready to write. I get it that you might be OCD and a total plotter, and you need that, but if it supposedly came from you, let it suck.
Right.
But get something down.
Right.
and then type the end and then make it
Right.
not suck.
Yeah.
You
In
know, but
immortal words,
yeah,
you
this
knew
thing
the
about
job
I'm
was
not
dangerous
ready
when
to
you took
write.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's
think I
right.
got rid of that excuse a while back. I've used it before, but it's been
Yeah.
a while. I think it's like,
And we mentioned, I think both of you mentioned having to think about it and all that sort of stuff. Sure. We all think about it. You do the pages for the day, and you know you're going to read the last couple tomorrow before you begin. So you go off and whatever you have to do, if you're mowing the lawn, if you're shopping, if you're cooking, whatever, and it's in the back of your mind and you're thinking, sure, that's part of writing. That's not the actual writing, but that's not in lieu of getting your pages
right.
or getting some writing down. It doesn't have to be a number of pages. It doesn't have, if that works for you, great. If it's a word count, great. But forward progress,
That's
you're a
me.
word count guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay, whatever it is, but just making forward progress. I tend, some people say you get the different story ideas and let them fight it out up there until you know which one is really ready to write, and that's the one you write. It's not for assignment. This is original material, right? But once you have that, I do the index card still, and that's while I'm thinking and planning. And even Stephen King, he says he's a pantser, right? But in one of his interviews, he says, I think about the story I'm working on or the thing I might start working on every night as I'm going to sleep. So he's plotting, he's seeing, he's
Right.
visualizing.
Right.
Joyce Carol Oates used to go running. And
Right.
when she ran, she would start the story and she'd go as far as she go in the story until she stumbled, and then not stumbled physically, but in the story.
Hmm.
And then she'd work on that and then finish her run or whatever. And she would keep doing that until she could see the whole story from beginning to end during her run. And then she would start writing. That's
Yeah.
her process.
Yeah.
There's as many different processes as there are human beings.
Yeah.
The only key is making forward progress,
Mhm.
whatever that is,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Do we
And
agree?
I have to be reminded of that all the time. I just in these last few weeks when I've been writing, how many times I'll say a little self-deprecating like, geez, I only got 640 words, not my 1,000 that I'm aiming for. And then inevitably somebody will say, yeah, but it's 640 words that you didn't have before.
True.
Any word towards the finish line is forward momentum. Oh, thank
I,
you. Yes, you're right.
And I would chime in and say, especially for aspiring and emerging writers, what you're hearing, the numbers you're hearing tossed around here now, do not have to be your numbers, as Chris was alluding to a little while ago. If you sit down and you're struggling to get something out and you get out 20 words, you're 20 words ahead,
Yeah.
right? Again, as Chris says, forward motion. The idea
Yeah.
is to keep moving forward. If it's
Yep.
a small count, it's a small count. Do it incrementally. At some point, the habit you're trying to develop is that you sit down or you stand up and you write.
Right.
James Clear says that you're not struggling to write a book, you're struggling or you're working towards becoming a writer.
Yeah.
That's the identity you're trying to take on.
Well,
So a writer writes.
right. Alex, I would say two things. One, I want to compliment Jim. When you do that thing about numbers, you tend to do it on your writing community on Facebook. And I recognize that as something that, like, you're making it public to keep yourself going.
Yeah, it's very much that.
Accountability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's accountability. It's a little bit of public shaming. Please shame me. Shame me so
So,
bad that I sometimes people do that without knowing it because they are like, yeah, I just wrote 6 short stories, and then I go, oh my God, why can't I do that? But yeah,
yeah,
it is that. It's that accountability thing. It's also a little bit of to pat myself on the back because I have achieved it. I call it the groove, being in the groove.
Yeah.
Time I have a bad spot of I go months. My worst was like 2.5 years of barely ever writing fiction. No, I will get back into the groove at some point. And I use that as my shining city on the hill. I got to get back to that point.
if I remember correctly, that was when you were putting out some of those pop culture books. the Batmans and the Whams and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
I felt like you were writing your way out of it by keeping the hand in the
It was
production
that.
going.
Yeah, some of it stemmed from my wife's death.
Yes, of course. Yes.
I stopped before that when we knew she was sick, and
Right.
that was my prime excuse.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty good excuse as far as excuses, but yeah, those did actually help me because I at least felt like I was editing and publishing the other two parts of my three-part title,
Right.
writer, editor, publisher.
Yeah.
And then that helped me get back to what I truly feel I am, which is a fiction writer. I
Yeah.
love editing the nonfiction books, but at the end of the day, I can shame myself and say that's not much writing, Jim. Fiction writing is the ultimate writing to me, the one that carries the most weight for me.
But sometimes you have to build a bridge. You have to build a bridge back. Whatever works. Just keep moving forward.
I just want to. You said something, Jim, and I'm just curious about that. You said that it was when your wife was sick, when you guys realized that she was sick, and you started to move away from the writing, and you said that was my excuse, and it was a pretty good excuse. I I want to maybe challenge that word excuse because I think that could have been considered, and I would certainly consider it a reason why it was hard for you to focus
Yeah.
on the work.
Yep.
Because of real life priority.
Yep.
And I think it's important for us to be very clear about that because there will be times in our lives when real life issues need to be dealt with and we need to give all of our attention, our focus, our hearts, our emotions, whatever, to that thing.
Sure.
I think that if we can be clear or if we can be honest about what's really going on, then this is intentional now. I cannot focus on this right now because I have to take care of. Then you can give yourself permission, maybe in some quiet time, to make some notes or to realize that maybe to help you deal with what's happening over here, I'm going to write about it, or I'm going to write some poetry, or I'm going to share my thoughts. I think it's about us being more honest with ourselves and not
With ourselves,
we're not AI, right? We're
Yeah.
not AI. We are human beings.
Yeah.
So being honest with ourselves and where our emotions, where our heads are, might help us better identify when we're procrastinating for lame reasons or maybe fear because I don't think I'm enough or whatever. And when we have to take some time to focus elsewhere because it's a priority, it's a life priority that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
But
Ken, let me play off of a word that you said, which is intent. If you are a procrastinator, it may help to define what your intentions are as a writer. It's another one of those advice things that I pull out when people ask me is what is your intention and how is that going to play out with you being a procrastinator? My own personal intention is I learned long ago that I wasn't going to be able to be a full-time writer. I am a professional writer, but I like to define it as um, more than a hobby, but less than a career. It's the secondary thing I do. I do have a day job because that puts food on the table and a roof over my head.
As do most writers.
Yeah. But some of the things that might be holding you back is that you really don't have an idea of what kind of writer you want to be. And maybe that's working into that being too hard on yourself thing. And like you said, Alex, not being truthful with yourself.
Right.
If your intention is to be a New York Times best-selling writer, author, then know that and try to work towards that if it's realistic. If you are going to be a casual writer, which is what I am, then that's a whole nother thing. But again, I'm suggesting that might be able to help with the way you work or not work, as the case may be.
Mm.
I would say that when you're asking yourself about intention, right? You have a better chance of being completely honest with yourself if you're having that conversation
Yeah.
alone. I've seen so many workshops when someone goes off pontificating or preaching about why this and my process, and you got to take yourself for a walk or look yourself in the mirror and say, what is it that you want to do? What do you think? And again, if it's the lifestyle, then be a writer. Can you not? Can you avoid it? If
It's the
that's a
ultimate
good
question,
test,
isn't it?
that's a
Yeah.
good test, Jim. If you can walk away
Mhm.
and it doesn't nag you, do that.
Yep.
You'll be happier.
Yep.
But if
I,
but if it haunts you and you can't get away from it,
mhm.
then make your peace that you're a writer and put your ass in the chair
Yep.
and write. Doesn't have to be spectacular,
Mhm.
doesn't have to be 6 pages a day. It has to be what will keep you coming back to that.
Mm.
And everything else is procrastination or rationalization.
Yeah. I've been a professional writer since 2002 now. That was when I made my first sale.
Mhm.
And there's been a lot of trial and error, and there is still some, but I have gotten to the point where I know what kind of writer I want to be. I know that I procrastinate. I know that there's going to be those periods where almost nothing is happening, and then I know I'm going to get back in the groove. And I've
Right.
accepted all of that, and I feel almost pretty comfortable with it. I still get mad at myself when I hit those bad periods, but I know the things that will help to pull me out of them. And I know that I'm going to have another 2-year run where I'm just a writing fool.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
I'll
can you?
never be the writing fool I was 20 to 25 years ago. And I look
Yeah.
back and it amazes me. I'll get those Facebook memory things that'll say 9 years ago, you said this. Hey, I wrote 4,000 words today. And then I put it down and I worked on this other story and did 2,000 words. And I thought, what the hell was I doing? Was I taking drugs or something? Like, but I'm being reasonable
Right.
today. I know what I'm capable of,
Right.
and I should be able to do 1,000 words a day, and that
Okay.
works for me at the age I'm at, and the situation I'm at, and the mindset that I'm at. That works for me, and if I can hit that groove,
Right.
I'm in it, and I
Right.
can get my freaking work done, whether or
And
not it's arbitrary.
right. Now that's a key. Find out what works for you. A couple of minutes ago, you said I have ways to pull myself out of a procrastination period. Can you talk about some of those ways?
Yeah, one of the
And
biggest.
don't mention the pulling your toenails out with the clipper. That's really,
Damn.
that was a gross story. I don't want to.
No, I do that flogging thing.
Yeah, don't talk about that one either. Right. People left the
Um,
room when you started with
There are
that.
small children here.
ruminating on past glories does not work. That's a
No.
killer.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah, yeah.
killer. And I got over that pretty quickly. One of the things is the word count.
Right.
I know what I can reasonably do, and 1,000 words a day ain't bad because in 30 days you've got a 30,000 word novella or half of a
Right.
novel. In two
Right.
months you can have a novel if you stick
Hmm.
to that.
Yeah.
And they're going to be, you know what? There's going to be days where it's 790 words, and there's days where it's going to be 1,294 words, and it's
Hmm.
Right.
all going to balance out in the end. The other key thing, and again, this is for me, is time of day and how I fit my writing into my life and my day job work schedule. And I finally hit upon writing in the morning, writing as the first thing I do when I get up. And it was like a revelation because again, I hate writing. I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. I greatly dislike writing, but I love having written. the weight that is taken off of me once I get my 1,000 words or whatever or so done in the morning,
Right.
frees my mind up for the rest of the day. And if I can get in the groove of that, what happens is what's going on right now. I wake up in the morning and I'm not even fully awake yet. Guess what's going on? I am thinking about the day's writing. And my God, it usually gets me up in the morning to make myself get out of bed because I start thinking of it and
Isn't
I
that the
start
theta?
writing it. I'm writing it before I'm even out of bed.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that the theta mindset at that point? They talk about when we're sleeping, we're in the theta realm. And when we first wake up, a lot of people go for their phones and things like that, what takes you out of that.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
theta, if I'm right, if I'm
No.
using the right
Yeah.
word, the theta,
Alex, I don't get out to the theta that
yeah,
often
right. The
anymore.
theta. I don't go to the
That was
theta
terrible,
with my
Jim.
wife
That was-
anymore. Right.
I like feta cheese, sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's the creative frame of mind
Yeah.
open. Plus, you slept on the problem or the
Yeah.
circumstance during the night.
Yep.
So yeah,
Well,
I am
even
the
when you've
perfect
done your
storm.
1,000 words and you go to work or whatever, the 1,000 words are in there and you're thinking of what comes next,
Yeah.
even if it's not top of mind. And then by the time the morning comes, you're ready to go.
Chris, I got to tell you, I'd go to work and I would dread. I'd go, oh, whew, work's almost done. You know, that good feeling. Yeah. And then you go, shit, I have to write when I get home.
Yeah, but now in the
And
morning
that's
it's
when I went,
different, right?
why are you doing that to yourself? If you hate it that much, for one thing, stop. But
Right.
like you said, I can't walk away from it. I'm too
Right.
deep into it. I can't walk away from
But
it.
you find it easier to write in the morning.
Yeah.
So you found that spot.
In this past July, I made a pretty big life change at my
I
work
remember you
day
posting
job,
that.
and it wasn't easy. I took something of a pay cut, but as far as being creative and my writing, it was all the difference in the world
Yep.
because I go in later. I was normally having to go in at 7:30. If I work the AM shift, I don't go in until 10:30 now. I wake up 5 or 6 in the morning, and by 7 a.m. sometimes I'm done with my writing, and I
Right.
go, I
Makes
got
the rest
that
of the
done.
day more pleasant. Yeah,
Yeah, it is. Oh my God. And then what's funny is the day goes on and maybe I do get home and what am I doing? I'm thinking about writing.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's wrong with you? You hate writing.
But you don't mind thinking about it, right?
That's worked for me as a horrible procrastinator. And number one, accept that you are a procrastinator. I'm not exactly saying you love it, but if you accept that you are, then that's a step towards recovery. But word count and time of day are my big ones. And then this is so weird. I'm the most creative at the most inopportune times ever. All of my creativity is usually when I can't write anything down. I'm just coming up out of sleep, or I'm like in the middle of sleep and I'm dreaming. I'm in the shower. I'm in the car.
Yeah.
On the expressway. And it's like, why am I the most creative in these stupid moments where I'm going to forget it because I have a horrible memory? Please let me get to work and grab a sticky note pad and jot things down and stick it in my pocket so I have it for later. This is funny. I've been writing every morning and just yesterday I felt like writing more in the evening and I actually stopped myself because
Interesting.
I was afraid that would somehow wreck my morning writing.
Okay.
And maybe that's stupid. Maybe it's
Work for you?
not
you get it?
reasonable.
Did you
Maybe
get
I
up the
should
next
have
morning
done
and
that.
write?
But I didn't for some reason. I said no because I found that my groove again, and it's in the morning.
Okay.
What I really love is I've actually had a couple people say to me that they're like, I wonder if that would work for me. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but John Bruning, my publishing partner, just like yesterday or whenever, said, "No, I'm wondering." He said, what you've been saying about this morning writing thing," and he goes, "I wonder if that would work for me." And it's try it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to work for you or not. It works for me. But you know what? Maybe that's what it's all about, is doing some experimenting with your
It's definitely about that.
procrastination.
Yeah.
Definitely
Maybe
about
that's
that.
really what it's all about. And let yourself fail. Don't look at it as, oh crap, why am I even bothering trying to break this procrastination thing?
Right. You got to fail in that Edison way where it's just one closer to what is going to work for you.
Yeah.
It
You know what
doesn't
Yoda,
end it. You just
you know
try.
what, failure is how we learn.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
But that wasn't the way he said it, right?
No,
Right. Yeah. He mixed it all up.
Yeah.
I still use index cards. And when I don't have them and I don't have a pen, that little notepad on the phone,
And we lost John. We lost
I'll
Jim.
either type it up.
no, I was gonna hold up my sticky notes.
There
That's
you
all.
go. You do the sticky notes, index cards, the notepad on your phone. I do sometimes hit the microphone and just dictate it in because it's always so much fun to try and figure out because my Bronx accent and whatever that dictating program is, they don't work. So whatever works to keep you going forward. And
I can't stand the sound of my own voice on recordings, so I can't do that.
I do it. I dictate it into the notepad, so it just comes out as type. But
The text, yeah.
And a lot of the spellings are wrong and all that stuff, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I can edit from there, right? I can just take it, email it to myself,
Absolutely.
stick it in the story. That just keeps you going, but it doesn't get in your way, and it doesn't replace whatever your working habit is.
He's tinking.
I'm trying to see what we haven't covered yet.
Well, while you're looking, let me just quickly throw this one in.
Please. Yes.
I have multiple documents, and this is piggybacking off of what Chris said. I have multiple Google Docs where I have talk to text. And sometimes when I don't feel like a procrastination, oh, I'm not a good typist. It's going to take my finger. I'll just talk it into the document. And yes, just like he says, there's misspelling. Sometimes it doesn't hear me right. I'm not speaking in a foreign tongue, but it somehow doesn't get me. But either way, it is so much easier to go back through 300, 400, 500 words and go, oh, I know what I was saying here, and to fix that, than to lose the whole thing all entirely. To not put the idea down or not get the writing done. And again, like I said, I got multiple, like sometimes it's thoughts for the day, and I got to go rummaging through. Oh, here's the piece that I wanted, right? Or sometimes it's in the document I'm working on. Don't give yourself an excuse not to make the notes, either with pen and paper or recording it by saying, oh, but I have to organize. No, the idea is to get it down.
Yes.
To get the words down on whatever, so they're there. They're out of here and they're down somewhere, and you have them. That's key. Organizing them, trimming them, revising them, all of that can come after you get them out of here and down.
Yeah. And then there's writing, and then there's rewriting, right? And you don't want to be a rewriting procrastinator when you're rewriting a paragraph each time. But you do, and it is healthy to embrace the idea that rewriting, editing is part of the process. You're going to get your first draft, that's just to get it down. The second draft, you're trying to make it coherent. Then the third draft is polish or whatever. Eventually you get down to the repetitive words and all those different, whatever I'm sure, Jim, you have a much different progression than I do. But whatever it is, as long as you know that's going to be part of the process, it becomes less daunting.
That's what you just said. It's very much allowing yourself to create in stages.
Yeah.
So you do not have to get it, quote unquote, all right the moment you put it down. No.
Alex, you're right.
You have that repetitive thing that you can do. Go back in stages and take care of whatever.
Here's a little bit more on that, and going off of that I'm not ready thing. I'm not ready because I'm not sure what the character's name is. Let me offer this. I've done that. Walked in the door and then looked up to see, and there's that character name. Sometimes I've literally just underscored and then gone on with the rest of the sentence. And I've gone back and filled in a place name, a character name, maybe there's a foreign word that I want to insert in there that I haven't looked up yet. Don't stop to do
No.
all of that if you
Or to
haven't
go do
already done
research
it.
and get out of the groove of
You're
writing.
telling a story, that's window dressing for the most part. I know that sounds weird, like a character name is just window dressing. Yeah, because the character's name is not necessarily part of the story that
No.
you're
Well,
telling.
it also, you're talking about first draft. You can call him Slappy, but that's it, as it starts bothering you. That's not his name. When you're grocery shopping, think about what the name should be,
Yeah.
and then you can do a find and replace. And happy day for you. But that shouldn't stop your forward progress.
Yeah, there's probably an answer for every excuse. There's a solution.
You know what the solution is?
Yeah. What did you start to say, Chris? Oh, okay. Because you
I just keep talking. What are you talking about? I was talking about the names. I was just commenting. It doesn't, in first draft, you can call him Slappy. It's not going to be its final name.
Right.
I like to give some name because even if it sucks, then you say, what would suck less? And what is more appropriate for the character? And again, that's forward progress.
Exactly.
But just, you had those students that would just not name their characters.
Yeah.
And then you still don't know him, and you still don't know him, and you still don't know him. Underscore, I know Jim's gonna, I'm gonna put that in, but he still has the character.
Yeah, I know who it is in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, emerging and aspiring writers, or even some writers who are just struggling with certain aspects of their creativity, there are tricks of the trade, there are methodologies, there are tips that people can offer you. And I liken this to going into a writer's hardware store. You can pick up the tools and check them out, but it's about finding the tools that work for you for the job you have to do.
Yes, so important.
And that's ultimately it. Anything that we've offered here this evening, this afternoon, this morning, whenever it is you're listening to this, these are from our experiences or things that we've heard other writers have utilized or gone through and whatever. Take it in, mull it over, try some of them out. Ultimately, you're trying to find the tools that work best for you.
Yeah. And to help you get out of your own way, because that's what procrastination is. You're getting in your own way. We want to get you to tell the damn story. We want to just get you moving forward. Yeah. What do you think, Jim? Final words of wisdom? What do you got?
Yeah, just because Stephen King says it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. Yeah, I get it. He's Stephen King or she's Danielle Steele or whatever, but
Octavia Butler,
that's gonna work worked for them.
And holding yourself up to their level
but don't think
that's a losing game.
They said it that it's the only way. You have got to do what works for you. And then other than that is literally right. WRITE is
RIGHT
is the right way.
Nice.
You have got to get things down. You have got to finish them. You've got to write the end. And that in itself might be the good feeling that's gonna carry you through making it pretty.
Yeah.
But just again, finish something.
Yeah, just go ahead. You know what? It's about being good to yourself in that way.
Yeah.
Don't let it become a big rock on your back.
Yeah.
This is why I'm here writing, so I can finish. So go ahead, have fun. If it sucks, that's fine. That's what rewriting and editing is about. But go ahead and get yourself there. Be that good to yourself that you get to write the end and get to have that feeling.
And then I'll add this one other thing, because you had mentioned, and Jim at one point had mentioned too, about writers that we admire or whatever. Ray Bradbury was one of the people that I was reading when I realized I wanted to write. I really wanted to write. And it was Something Wicked This Way Comes. And it was the opening piece that got me. It just spoke to me at that time. It hit me at the right time. But I remember what I said when that realization hit me. And I read his words and I got that feeling and all that. And I said, one day I want to be able to write this well. So it wasn't like suddenly I want to be him or I got to write just like him now. It was something to aspire to. It was a level of quality that I wanted to work up to.
Yeah.
And that's something that all aspiring emerging writers, even those who are established, if there's somebody whose work you admire, great, admire that work and understand that's who they are and that's what they've accomplished. And you want to reach a certain quality level of your own.
Yeah.
And sometimes that person can inspire you to aim for that.
That's that intention thing.
Yeah.
What are your intentions as a writer? What kind of a writer do you want to be? How often do you want to be a writer? How often do you want to write? Do you have an end game in sight? I will feel I have achieved something when I hit the New York Times bestseller list. Now,
Just write your name in there.
for me, it's my goal is to finish the story.
Yeah.
And then something of an extension of that is then I want to publish it. I want to have it where I can then give the story to readers, other people.
For a nominal price.
I haven't reached that yet. No one seems to be reading my stuff.
It's
Who
so
is
much stuff
Dracula's
out
daughter?
there.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the idea of sales is a whole
Gloria
nother episode.
Holden is Dracula's daughter.
So I think we've given people a lot to think about as far as procrastination is
Hope so.
concerned. I hope they don't think about it for 3 months instead of writing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, hey, you guys have given me a lot of good ideas, but I think I'll just think about it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think what the takeaway should be is that you have 3 writers here that are talking about all this. So you're not alone. If you're feeling procrastination, you're not alone. There was a great comedian, I think it was Seinfeld actually, and he said, I was like everybody else, I sucked at the beginning. But it didn't make a difference because if you got to the improv, if you got there, you do your little bit and you're allowed to stand around and watch the other. I just wanted to be in that space, right? And that's the same thing with writers, except you're here by yourself and you're writing. To be in that space where you're making the things inside you into stories that might connect with somebody else. It's not about I'm going to be comparable to somebody else. It's about I'm going to feel like I've done what I brought out what's inside me. And then you can work on finesse and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. All right. So guys,
one day
Work
you'll
on
be
your
Alex
author
Simmons.
photo and your author bio
yeah,
and your author sign and your
my author t-shirts. Yeah, right.
cheese and wine party.
Yes, and the coffee mugs, right?
That's right.
World tour. Yeah.
Just right.
Yeah.
That's right. But well, Chris, Jim, actually, thank you for coming back and
Double duty over
another
here. Great
session.
I
What a
look
guy.
so forward to this, and I am so glad to be back. Honestly, and I'm not just saying this. I'm being honest with you. You guys have one of my most favorite shows to be on.
Wow, thank you very much.
And I love it because we can talk about fun things and we can talk about very serious things like this. And so you guys are doing yeoman's service, and here's to another 350 years.
No, not yet.
250 years. That's Alex.
I'm closer. But
it's me and you, Jim. We're just puny and regular
saplings. You're
he
sapling.
Is immortal.
Yeah. No, but we're 350 episodes plus, and we're certainly aiming to do a lot more. So thank you, Jim. That means a lot. That really does.
Thank you for letting me be part of it.
And you will continue to be. Chris.
And look forward to next episode.
Yeah.
And Alex is going to talk about his memories of being in 8th grade with Noah and Moses. So,
folks, you'll understand when Chris is not here the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Jim, it was a great thing. Thank you very much. Really
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Peace.